All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer. I'm with Bureau of Interior Design, along with some of the other designers that are here today to help with consultations. And we put together this event for you because, well, we'll kind of get into it in a second, but we often find that clients have difficulty with kind of creating different styles and this kind of style mashup within their house. And so we put together this event. So this is the first event that kicks off our Design Club series. So you are the first members of Design Club. So, that is great. So let's kind of jump into this, if we will. So this is kind of how we started. My friend and client who has a 1915 Italianate house in Arden Park. Usually the trees are much more beautiful, but I took this a few weeks ago in the winter. And she says, Jen, my house is this style, and I love this beautiful mid-century modern, Scandinavian, Danish modern furniture. I can't have that. And I'm like, well, that's BS. Why can't you have that, right? And so I've been working with her over the past couple years in order to add those pieces and kind of curate that style within the house. And we'll see that in a minute, okay? Another example of that kind of mashup of styles is also you've probably seen these ads for Roche-Bobois, which is a French modern furniture company. They've been around for many years, but often you see these contemporary furniture pieces with these really beautiful, highly stylized Victorian or Parisian apartments, right? Or all this modeling, this molding and things like this, right? So they're doing it here, which is a good example for us, right? We can certainly have a style mashup within our space. So I just want to kind of, I guess, debunk the idea that that's kind of one of the most limiting ideas that we have in interior design is that our house, the exterior of our house, has to dictate what goes inside of it. Another example is the Edsel and Eleanor Ford house, if anyone has been to that house over in the Grosse Pointe. Yeah, the house was built in 1929 by Albert Kahn in a Tudor style of architecture. And then in the 1930s, the Fords had industrial designer Walter Dorwin Teague come in and do some modern rooms. And so we see this kind of Art Deco, streamline, Art Moderne style within that house. And it really blends quite nicely as far as this mashup as well. So there's kind of another real world example that we're able to see. And I think something that's really important is kind of addressing where people get stuck, right? We have lots of style labels. We have, Pinterest. We have HGTV. We have Instagram. I love Instagram. And real estate listings and things like this. But not everybody gets it right, right? And so I've often seen a real estate listing that says it's a Tudor style house and it's colonial or things like that. And, those professionals are doing the best they can. But I think when we start putting ourselves into labels and into these buckets, that's kind of where we get stuck. So versus just these are the styles that I like, and I'm going to incorporate them into my home. So they're useful as long as we just don't get stuck within those. So of course, right, thinking through things like my house is traditional, so my modern furniture won't work, or mid-century only works in mid-century houses. That's simply not the case. So I think the most important thing is to think about that style labels describe furniture, not necessarily a people or this lived experience, okay? So thinking back about a style mashup and kind of how it works, it's important to balance what you love. It's also important to think about what your home gives you, meaning an architectural style, things like that, right? Maybe there's a column in your house. maybe it's on the inside, maybe it's on the outside, and you'd like to lean into that. Or maybe you want to contrast and you don't want to accentuate those things as well. And then also thinking about how you live, right? Maybe you live in a colonial house and you love contemporary furniture, but you have a family and kids and pets and all of these things that are kind of hard on furniture. Maybe you don't want those super contemporary clean lines, but you want simple, minimalistic, but cozy and comfy. And all of that can exist in the same spot, okay? So thinking about how designers are successfully mixing these styles, right? So we're using scale and proportion, thinking that modern furniture often works beautiful in older homes because of the contrast, but you could put historic furniture in a very contemporary home as well and have that contrast. This material continuity, so thinking about all these threads, this wood tone maybe, or a metal finish, upholstery texture, things like that becomes this visual glue or these threads that you can pull. So for example, in this room, we have these metal pieces here that are at the top of these columns. And these other metal tones talk to that. So it all talks to each other. The warmth of this wallpaper talks to the warmth of the wood here. Okay, so we're starting to kind of pull those threads together. Color becomes a unifier with a consistent palette that makes varied styles feel cohesive. Now, that doesn't mean that if you want something that's kind of very textural, you have to live in a beige house, or just because you might like purple, that has to be in every room. But sometimes pulling those threads of little tidbits here and there really make it feel cohesive, okay? And then a negative space and restraint. So mixing styles versus mixing everything. So kind of curating your look, I think, is really, really important as well. Sometimes you may love a piece and maybe it works better in this room versus that room, kind of thing, to kind of push and pull those contrasts as well. Okay. So heading back to the Italian Renaissance house that I was showing you. So I kind of want to show you how we did a mashup in that house, okay? So we started off with this cooker, this British cooker. Brittany called and said, I love this British racing green. This is going to be a huge thing in the house. And so we're going to kind of kick everything off. She loved this British racing green. She loved navy, and we kind of wanted to not just have a navy house, though. So we wanted to mix those colors. So we started off here. The first room we redid was the kitchen, and some of the countertops, the marble in the countertops, I don't have a good photo of it, but it has a little bit of a green tone to it. So that kind of connected all of that. The cabinetry has a little bit of a green tone as well to it. So we kind of leaned into some of those green colors within that space. And then when we went to the living room, this fireplace is a Puabic fireplace. You can see that it goes around the surround and onto the hearth. What you're unfortunately not able to see is that the tile actually continues around the perimeter of the room. And it does that to do a couple things. We needed to use some of that wood to repair other parts of the wood. And there are radiators in each corner of those rooms. And so it became a landing pad for tile now, which wouldn't get damaged if there were further radiator issues in the future. So that's how we kind of solved some of those functional things for her. And so you can see some of the existing plaster work that was original to the home. The fireplace mantle is original to the home. And we worked with Puabic in creating this new design. So again, kind of talking to that British racing green, some of the navy that she loved, and then also she added a gold color as far as an accent. When we redesigned this room after the fireplace was completed, we leaned into those tones in the rug. Okay. Generally, we like to start with the rug first and kind of build our room around that. And we're able to pull colors from that rug, and then it looks very cohesive and designed. So it's a little washed out, but there is a kind of darker green in that room. This looks a little gray here, this little guy, but that is green, and a little bit of an orange, and there's a soft pink in there as well. And so I think as designers, it's our job to push our clients a little bit. And so we pushed Brittany out of her comfort zone. So she likes navy, she likes green. We added a little orange for contrast and that soft pink. And so we're working on pillows and things like that now that will bring in some of those pinks and those other colors. So again, that little color ties everything together within that room. Okay. So I want to show you one other room that we're working on. This is the dining room, and yes, we painted the wood. The wood was not in good condition. We had a little fight over that. I wanted to save it. Brittany said, no, take a good look. It's really bad. So she fell in love with this kind of Asian-inspired little chinoiserie wallpaper, and so we put this in the plaster area above, and from that wallpaper, then we pulled the color of the wood paneling. Okay. So house is definitely still in progress, but these are some of the things that we created a lived in or a place to be able to live with pets. So you saw the cat. There's another cat that hides in the corner, and there's a big dog and children and things like that. So this house definitely had to be livable, right, within that space. Here's another house that we worked on a few years ago. So this is a historic house in Birmingham, Bloomfield area. This was designed by architect Wallace Frost. You may know that name. He did a lot of work in the 20s and 30s, and we were able to still kind of do a mashup here where we again created a livable space within a historic home and lots of nods to the historic nature of that. And this couple really wanted to lean into some of those historic touches and historic details of the house. So that would be, keeping the original wood beams and things like that in the living room, but again, adding some more contemporary silhouettes to that furniture in the living room as well. So, and then in the kitchen, right? Those stools are fairly contemporary looking, but they don't look out of place here, right? So this is another home that we worked on. This is a little bungalow in Royal Oak, and it was completely gutted. The client wanted to had too many small rooms for them, how they lived. She wanted to blow everything up, so to a huge open concept. And this was how we designed her kitchen. Dan worked with her in detail, many reiterations of getting the right colors of cabinetry and the right lights and all of those things. What you unfortunately can't see in this image is those orange chairs match an orange stove on the other side of that island. So again, kind of pulling all those themes together. Another touch are those lamps, those pendants have kind of a goldy orange tone on the inside of them, not quite a copper. But again, those similarities pull all those threads together, okay? And then an image upstairs in her bedroom, and then outside the bedrooms, this was a lamp that she loved, but a little more mid-century, right? And it works in this space because she likes color. She left a lot of the walls white, so her art and things like that would be able to pop in that space. But again, provided a good mashup. I got another one for you. So this couple, we did a new build for them. And through our homework process that we put clients through, we found that she loved William Morris. She loved arts and crafts. And so even though this was a new build, we still leaned into that arts and crafts feel for her. And so we've got the William Morris fruit print here on the ottoman. That pillow and the green pillow is also William Morris print. William Morris inspired print for the wallpaper. And then we wanted to do something more contemporary at the fireplace, but still have a nod to craftsmanship and traditional materials and things like that. So that tile is actually a brick. It's actually a Japanese style black brick that we put in a double herringbone pattern that kind of gives it that zigzag effect. Okay. The kitchen, we kind of leaned in gently to some of those arts and crafts with the pendants, but left the rest of the kitchen fairly contemporary. The tile backsplash is, it looks kind of historic. It has kind of a mottled edge finish, but it was, again, kind of that push and pull of kind of an old feeling, but something new and contemporary. And then some of the furniture as well. So we chose a wingback chair with a fun dog print, right? Again, kind of those unexpected things, right? You maybe expect a wingback chair in the library, but maybe not with a dog print. Same house, but kind of goes into her love of tile and her love of craftsmanship. So the master bath on the left-hand side here, again, the tile looks like it might come from a historic pottery, but it is actually just a machine-made tile that still looks historic. She loved terracotta and those types of materials and those feelings, so we created this middle, it's actually a guest room, like an in-law suite for her mom when she comes to visit, with handmade glass pulls and things like that. Again, going back to that craftsmanship, kind of in this, an ode to an arts and crafts house. And then in the kids' bath as well, some handmade tile that looks modern and also has a modern kind of feel as well. Okay, only a couple more. But I thought some examples were good for you. So this was another project that we worked on. We renovated the whole house. We did not do a lot in this kitchen, but what we did do was we added these stools, which kind of have a blend of a little more industrial feel. And the lighting adds a little bit more contemporary to it. We worked with the smith shop in creating this metal hood as well. And so we kind of gave it a little more contemporary feel when it was feeling very traditional. Okay. And then last one for you. This house here was a new build in Birmingham, Bloomfield area, and we added some details. There was this kind of set above this little cove ceiling here, this tray ceiling, and we added those beams to give it a little bit more of a character, a little bit more of kind of an ode to a craftsman, a tutor, things like that. You can see some very contemporary lucite pieces here that work great with her very traditional pieces. So this was her second, this is a second home that we worked on for her. And so some of those original furniture pieces came over to the second house. Okay. So along with this wardrobe in the corner, but then we have some contemporary pieces of art, right? So it's again kind of that curation of those spaces that provides the mashup, right? So it is possible that some of these styles can certainly exist in the same space. Okay. All right. So kind of where to begin. So I think these are important to kind of identify one style that you really love emotionally. And it's also okay to not necessarily know the name of that, right? You don't have to say, like, I love Art Deco. I love Art Deco. But, if you don't know the name of it, that's still fine. You kind of have it in your head as far as what that style is. And then I think it's important to know the style that your home leads architecturally, just to know it, right? Don't always have to lean into it. And sometimes it's as simple as my home is traditional and my home is contemporary. Doesn't have to, again, break it down into all those architectural styles. And then I think it's important also to understand a lifestyle need that kind of may override those aesthetics. So again, talking about that family that likes contemporary furniture, but maybe they can't have a coffee table with a hard edge they have toddlers or things like that, right? Or, maybe you want an all white house, but you have a big black lab that loves to roll around on furniture, right? So how do we adjust that? But maybe it's, maybe just not the furniture that's white, right? Maybe it becomes a very tonality, right? So you're working with textures and things like that can accommodate that dog's fur, but then the rest of your house is light and airy and things like that, okay? And of course, just noting that these identifiers inform your decisions, not necessarily create those labels, okay? One thing I wanted to point out is this book. I was going to add a few little notes in the slide about what style your house might be or things like that. And I can email everyone when we're done the name of this book as well. But this is a field guide to American houses. So if you want to get really nerdy about houses, or you want to take an evening walk in your neighborhood and identify all the houses, this is a fantastic resource. There's 2 editions to this. The first one was in like the 80s. It's a great book, but I would recommend the second edition. It's very, there's a new neighborhood section in it. They talk about the millennial mansion. It brings everything up until about 2010. So this is a great resource, and I'll leave it up here if you want to look at it as well, okay? So if you want to get nerdy about architecture, you certainly can. So thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. Thank you for braving it out in the rain and all of that. It was great to see some of you sharing your photos with your neighbor and why you're here and things like that. So that's really fantastic to see. So we can start our consultations in the next few minutes, I think. We'll have them over here. If you did not sign up for a consultation, see Michelle in the corner here. And that concludes our presentation this morning. Okay, thank you.